Every skilled church musician should be paid. And that number one reason is so that they can focus. So let me ask these same pastors who believe that musicians should play for free. When they built your church, did they build your church for free? Huh? You went up to Lowe's, you went up to Home Depot, and you said, I, the servant of the Lord, command thee to bring those bricks for free because you're serving the Almighty God. No, that stuff costs money. Now you're probably a pastor and you're like, yeah, but if I pay musicians, I need to pay ushers too. And I need to pay the people who are counting the money in the back. Listen, anybody can be an usher, anybody can count money, but anybody can't just jump on a piano and play. Like, let's think about this. How many years of preparation does it take an usher to learn how to, hi, welcome to our church. Would you like a seat in the front? Like, that doesn't require skill. You can find decent singers, but you can't find highly skilled gospel musicians. Last time I played at a church, and I'm talking about full time, I made upwards to $2,000 per week. Let that sink in. Now, even here recently, I played at churches and filled in, and guess what? They just shake my hand and say, Casey, thank you for coming, with no money. So I don't have a fee, I don't have a rate. We'll talk about prices and things of that nature a little bit later on in this video, but I just want to put that out there that this is coming from a place of love and a sense of urgency. Okay, it's time for us to talk about it.
You know, shout out to KC, really dope church musician. He's been in the game for a minute. I think this is a really reasonable take on the whole subject of whether or not, you know, musicians should be paid. And, you know, you see this more often than not. And it makes me, as he was talking, it reminded me of a story because he talked about, like, you know, should a musician, you know, like, all of the years and all of the preparation that goes into it, should a musician be paid for that? And it reminds me of a story about this ship that was broken. The rudder was broken and it wouldn't turn, and the ship would not go, and they couldn't get the ship, massive, you know, ship or what have you. And so they brought in all of these technical people and they couldn't figure out what was going on, couldn't fix it or whatever. So they find this really old guy that's been, you know, they say he's been working on it for generations. He's been working on ships for generations. They bring him in, he comes in, no tool belt, no nothing, assesses the situation, looks up, looks at this. So he takes out a hammer, boom, boom, on two sides, on this side, boom, boom, twice on that side, tells them to, start the boat, boom, they crank the boat, boat cranks up, ship cranks up or what have you. And, you know, they asked him, you know, wow, this is dope. Thank you so much. Nobody could figure this out. You figured it out for us. How much do we owe you? And he said, that'll be $100,010. And they were like, 100,000, 110. Why so much? And he said, you're going to pay me $10 for the hammer, and you're going to pay me $100,000 for knowing where to hit. So, that's kind of like how I view this situation when it comes to, you know, paying a musician. Should a musician be paid? Should you, pay someone for their services? Because you're not paying that individual for just that service that you're paying them for. You're paying them for their experience, in the matter. If it's an experienced musician, indeed, you're paying them for their experience. You're paying them for their knowledge, their time, more importantly than anything, because we all know, if you guys don't know what it's like to be a church musician, to be a full-time church musician, it seems like we would be just fiddle-piddling and twiddling our thumbs Monday through Friday, and then we decide to get up on Sunday morning and learn a couple of songs and go play. And it's way more detailed than that. Most musicians I know spend hours, the good ones, they spend hours in prep. That's making tracks, making stems, learning. If you have someone that's operating in a worship pastor or minister of music capacity, most of these guys and gals are they're coordinating your volunteers. They're doing the heavy lifting and doing the heavy work without you having to do it. So I think in that standpoint, you're paying for experience. You know what I mean? You're paying for that thing. So I can see how KC could get upwards of $2,000 a week, because they're paying him for his experience, his service, his time, his effort, everything that goes into it, making tracks, coordinating with musicians, rehearsing the band. And I always used to say ministry is only 10% playing. Music ministry is 10% music, and it's 90% dealing with people. And so if you could deal with the people, coordinate the people, deal with attitudes, deal with excuses, deal with not showing up, dealing with having to step in, it's a real full-time job. And I feel that musicians don't really get compensated fairly for it. A lot of that has to do with culture. A lot of that has to do with the stigmas that's put around church musicians. A lot of that has to do with, the things, the stereotypes that are put on Black church musicians. A lot of that has to do with, just economics, and I think majority of it has to do with the fact that there are just way too many churches in any given demographic of area. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like, you go like here in Charlotte, I think there's plus 1,000 churches just in our region in this area, which sounds bananas. But just imagine you got 1,000 churches trying to service all of the people that are in this region, and not all of them are like tithe payers, not all of them are that, and so there's too many churches, not enough resources to go around because the resources are like unequally split across all of these different ministries. You got storefronts, you got mega churches, and you got everything in between. And so I can see how it's difficult to do that, because it depends on what the church's budget is. So it's a multi-tiered conversation. You know what I'm saying? It's not a monolith. It's not something that we just say it's this and it's this only. It's not black or white. There's a lot of nuance in the middle to figure out. But I do think that as church musicians and pastors, we all need to come together and have like these conversations to really like get the realistic expectations of what it takes to run a music ministry effectively. Know what their skill set is. Like if you don't have the skill set, if you're still transposing, if you don't know songs, if you're just getting started, you don't make $2,000 a week. But if you've been in the game, you're coming with 20 plus years of experience as a, minister of music, as someone who's run and done music ministry. If you're coming with resources and stems and making tracks and production, and you're bringing value to the table, you're quarterbacking the entire situation. Person like that doesn't like come in as a volunteer unless they willingly do. So it all depends on that. So you as a young church musician that's coming into the game and you're saying like, man, I should be getting paid for what I'm doing. Well, have you developed the skill level? Do you have enough experience? Because even in the secular world, pay is based on experience. You know what I'm saying? Pay is based on experience, even in the secular world. So you know, a guy that just came out of college is not going to make as much as a guy that's been in the game for 20 years. You know what I mean? And as a whole record of sales and whatever the case may be for the job on his record, on his employment history, that's what it goes down to. So as a musician, you have to ask yourself, like, am I and have I developed the skill sets that I need to in order to command, whatever it is that, I'm asking. Am I asking for something reasonable, and can the church afford it? And if not, if you want to do this as a full-time gig, then you need to start exploring other options. You know what I mean? But if you're really committed to that church and they just can't pay you what you want to be paid or what you feel like you're worth being paid, then you need to come up with some other side hustles or some other little things. Play for a different church, play for multiple churches, those type things, gig on the weekend, do other things in order to support yourself. Get online, do content, do videos, do social media, do YouTube, create products, do e-commerce, build a website, start doing production work. There's a ton of things that you can do in order to generate revenue in this space. So for me, it's just all about services paid for services rendered. It's just always that. If your musician, if that person in your music ministry is serving you at that level, then you ought to be willing. And of course, if you're bringing in revenue, this is all predicated on that. If you're bringing in the amount of revenue to support them and pay them a livable wage, you definitely should do that. You all want to thank you for making it to the end of this video. First of all, thank you for watching to the end. If you made it to the end, make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button, drop a comment, and let me know what you think about everything that I've talked about. And make sure you check out the Patreon link down below. Hop over there for some exclusive content. All right, I'll talk to you guys on the next one. I'm out. Holla at your boy.